there's been occasions where I probably would have acted. There's occasions there where I would have jumped in and said, right, enough's enough now. We need to do something about this. But actually they said no, because God's way would be to believe in that person. And honestly, that's floored me sometimes.
Welcome to the Leading Second podcast, a space to help church leaders thrive in the second chair. Today's conversation will help you embrace your calling, get it right with your pastor, and lead in an uncommon way. Let's jump in.
Well, hello, Leading Second. Welcome back to the Leading Second podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart, and we are so excited and honored that you would join us in this space today. We've created Leading Second for all of us who lead from the middle. So this is your space. If you lead from the second chair in any capacity, feel at home here in this tribe. We've created this space as a resource for you. We want to see you thrive in the seat, in the lane that God has assigned to you. And since this is your space, we want to hear from you. Please feel free to send us a DM, email us, reach out to us. We want to know what you want to hear about on future episodes of the Leading Second podcast. I love stumping our guests and giving them really tough stuff to talk about. So help us out with that. And we'd love to hear from you. And Leading Second podcast and all of our resources are also designed not just for you, but for your team. We've created episode guides for today's episode and all of our resources found on Leading Second Plus. So check us out. We'd love to resource your team in any way we can. Today, I am so excited because I have a crew of our very best joining us for the podcast today. Welcome, friends. Glad you all are here. Some of our coaching team for Leading Second, and even a new British friend that we're excited to introduce to you. And today we're going to talk on the subject of more than a month. More than a month. We're going to talk about pastor appreciation, honor, even a little bit of life under authority, and why it matters for us to get it right in the second chair. So before we get there, hey guys, welcome. So glad you're here. First of all, we have Joseph Kelley, who's on our coaching team. Introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, it's an honor to be back on the podcast. My wife and I are in Oklahoma City at Discovery Church. We've been with our pastors for going on 14 years now.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been a privilege to be a part of this space and to get to serve with you and Lindsay and the rest of the team.
Awesome. We're glad you're here. We have our favorite, Jen Martin, from NorthRock Church in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome back, my friend.
Yes, thank you. So good to be back. Leading Second is one of my favorite things. There's nothing like it out there, so it's so good to be back with you. Yes, me and my husband serve at NorthRock in San Antonio and have for 17 years. So, yeah, we know a thing or two, and we have a lot more to learn. So
the thing I love about Matt and Jen is you all have been in executive pastor roles, I think, for a number of years now, but you also took on a campus. You took on one of your locations this year.
We did. That's a whole different ball game. So everything I thought I knew, I've learned I know nothing. Absolutely nothing. So maybe I'll learn something today. We'll see.
No, it's fun seeing y'all stretch and try something new. And then we have Alan Cooper. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me.
From the United Kingdom. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Indeed. So my wife and I, Katie, serve at Soul Church in Norwich in the UK under Pastors John and Chantel Norman. We've been there for around about 10 years now. And yeah, we're loving it. We're loving seeing what God is doing. And it's great to be with you guys. We're following you from afar, from across the pond. And yeah, you're doing some incredible stuff over here. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we need to do some stuff over there. And I love the church in England specifically. I mean, we have a heart for Europe and believing God for years to do ministry in Europe. But fun fact about me, the origin story of serving pastors and church leaders for me begins with a man who, when I was in Bible school, so this is like 25 years ago, based out of our church in Seattle and traveled and equipped pastors in England specifically, or I guess in the UK. And one summer in between my 2 years in Bible school, I just felt like it seemed like a cool idea to spend a summer over there. You know, why not? Bought a plane ticket, went over, carried his bags, just hung out. And it was actually walking into one of the churches one day that he was going there to serve I actually felt God whisper to me that one day I would do this the rest of my life.
Wow.
So my origin story for all this actually is in your country.
Amazing. It's
Somewhere.
like it's
I don't
come
know
full
what city
circle.
it was. Yeah. So you reached out a few months ago and said, we want to be friends. And I said, I really want to be your friend. I've wanted to be your friend for 25 years. You just didn't know it. So we're just really glad to have you here. And we all ended up in the same city on the same day here. So we're just putting you to work, I guess.
Awesome.
As a new friend.
It's great to be here.
So, all right, Pastor Appreciation. We love Pastor Appreciation Month at Leading Second. I believe that honor is one of the great markers of a healthy team, a healthy church. Honor is currency, it is life. And quite frankly, right now, the world's definition and the world's script is killing honor. And I just want to go on the record and say for us at Leading Second, we're not buying it. I'm ready to push back really strongly on any doubt or hesitation on why honor is good and beneficial in the life of a church. I am ready to expose how dishonor, we make it somehow, certain circles have made it sound appealing or even holy, and I don't buy it. I would actually ask our audience listening, do you really want to serve on a team without honor? Just want you to think about that for a minute. Is that really what you want? We've made honor culture. It's become synonymous with like butt kissing. And I just don't buy it. And I think we can do better and have a better conversation. And today maybe Leading Second can be part of that. So I'm just going to throw it to you guys for us to start talking about today. I'd like to hear from you on why honor culture is beneficial to the life of a team, but I'd also like to kind of hear the idea of why is honor more than just flattery or butt kissing or something self-serving? Why is it beneficial and helpful to the life of a team?
I'll just jump in first. I think honor, when we talk about being beneficial to a team, is that honor shapes culture because it puts everything in its proper authority. To say that we honor God is to say that we honor his authority.
That's right.
And our pastors, our leadership, what God has put into place is part of his will and his plan and his purpose for our life. And so by very nature, I think I've seen a lot of people talk about, that they honor God and they love God, but they have issues with authority. And to truly honor God means to honor the authority that he's put in place. So, to have a team that honors builds a culture that is not just built on kingdom principles in what we say, but it's kingdom principle in the way that we live, which puts everything in a healthy order, that the posture of our heart, the posture of our mind, the posture of our team is in line with what God has commanded us to do as leaders. And I think it lines us up with his word for the favor and the blessings and the hand of God. And oftentimes I think some of the greatest frustrations in church and with leaders in ministry stem from a culture that is misaligned with God's principles scripturally when it comes to honor.
Good. So, one of the greatest examples is David and Saul, right? And David had so many opportunities to, not only dishonor, but ignore. And you never go wrong with honor. Like there have been times in our life, certainly in ministry, Matt's been in ministry for, I think, like 30 years. And over the course of time, there have obviously been moments where we have felt like slighted in some way.
Sure.
And so there have been opportunities for us to not necessarily dishonor, but not bring honor to our leaders. We've got maybe a little something. But Matt and I just made a commitment to each other that, hey, you never go wrong when you honor the man of God, ever. That man has to answer for what they've done, but you also have to answer for how you treat them. So when we think about culture, our culture nowadays is just so selfish.
Yeah.
It's all about me and what I want.
Yeah.
And so the idea of honor, it's not that people are against it. It's not even that our teams are against it. It's that it's so countercultural that even when they think being nice is bringing honor. And so in the church, we have to actually teach what honor means nowadays. And this month just gives us an opportunity to actually show our congregations, show our teams what honoring the man of God looks like.
Leading Second Camp is coming up in the U.S. and Canada. We're bringing 3 incredible opportunities for you and your team to experience high-impact worship, teaching, and ministry. Leading Second Camp is designed to help church leaders sharpen their skills, strengthen their unity, and step into all that God is calling them to. And you can join us in Toronto, Ontario on November 6th, Red Deer, Alberta on November 13th, or in the U.S. in San Antonio, Texas on February 25th and 26th. Don't miss this opportunity to grow, be inspired, and connect with leaders from across the country. Register today at leadingsecondcamp.com.
You bring up David and Saul, which I think is the right place to go in Scripture. And I just always like to remind people when we talk about David and Saul, first of all, David was in the Old Testament. This is not the New Covenant. This is not the New Testament. This is the eye for an eye Old Testament. In other words, if someone throws a spear at you, you get to throw it back.
Yeah.
That's the Old Testament. That's the law. This isn't the nice turn the other cheek,
Right.
Jesus
Right.
moment
Yeah.
yet.
Right.
And so David, his own leader, is trying to kill him. And I like to remind second chair leaders, David had it worse than you on your worst day, because
Yeah.
your leader is not trying to physically kill you. I know it might feel
At least
tough.
we hope not.
At least we hope that.
Yeah.
I mean, David had it worse, and you have to look at his response.
Yeah.
Because if David was called a man after God's own heart, and quite frankly, it says in Acts that David fulfilled the purpose of God for his generation, I would want those 2 things said of me.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can accept David as a model, we have to do things that way as almost this Old Testament announcement of a new way of doing things that was counterculture. So
Yeah.
I love that you said David and Saul, and I think everybody has to remember context on that one. And I have heard it said, if you want to be a David, which I think I want to be, if you want to be a David, don't make your leader a Saul. Don't turn them into one.
Yeah.
Don't behave as if they're a Saul
Right.
and assume they are and treat them with suspicion and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Good.
Let me ask you all this. How does an ongoing culture of dishonor choke the work of God? I feel like we see that in Nazareth. It's recorded in Scripture that there's 2 places Jesus was amazed, one at the centurion's faith and one at the dishonor in his hometown, or familiarity in his hometown. If Jesus himself can't do ministry and dishonor, it's going to, I think, choke the work of God
Right.
in our communities. But why does that happen? What does dishonor look like, and why does it have such a negative effect?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think we see all day, every day, whether that's on Instagram or memes or anywhere else, is that spirit of dishonor is just so prevalent. And, I'm from the UK. I think we're probably 20 years ahead of you guys in some of this stuff in dishonor. We're not ahead of you in many things, but that's probably one of the things. And there's such a temptation to just keep bringing people down and to just keep throwing arrows in there. And actually, when we can get our heart posture right, you mentioned it a minute ago, it's all about the heart. And actually, when we can get that bit right, I feel like that gives God the room to move.
So why would someone, I mean, this isn't just a UK thing, this is a human thing. Why would someone want to tear someone down? Like what would be the motive behind, I don't want you to succeed too much, or I don't want to honor you too much? Is there a reason behind that?
But then maybe some of that is a self-preservation thing. Some of that might be I want to get ahead. And actually, if I'm cheering you on to get ahead, then I get left behind. I think there's probably an element of that.
Yeah. Like with money, they say, people don't care how much you have until you have more than them.
Yeah.
And honor is probably the same. If as long as your platform isn't bigger than mine, I can cheer you on. But the second that your platform is bigger than mine, then the cheering stops. And, honor is such a probably misunderstood word because people, culture is so selfish, like Alan just said, and self-preservation. And because of things like Instagram and TikTok and the memes and all of this, self-esteem is at an all-time low.
Sure.
And so because of that, self-preservation is, anything to make me feel better about myself. And so honoring you, if your platform is bigger, doesn't feel like something I want to do.
Yeah. I think there's competition that gets in there a little bit too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think we can approach ministry really competitively with each other. The kind of I got to be better than, mantra. And in the last couple of years, I've had accusations of entitlement and stuff lobbed at me because I like to vocally honor my pastor. I'm not doing it to get ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I do it because it's biblical. I do it because I want to set a pattern, for other leaders. But I think some of that criticism gets born out of a spirit of competition.
Right.
Almost like a jealousy or an envy. And I just go back to the idea, I don't think we want, say what you will about honor, and I think people sometimes can honor with impure motives, but say what you want about it. You don't want the opposite on your church team. Think about what a team of dishonor looks like.
Right.
A team of dishonor, worship team doesn't show up prepared for practice. They show up late. They show up, not music memorized, or, staff members don't show up on time. They don't show up prepared. They treat each other poorly. They cut each other down. I think we just have to, if you're going to vilify honor culture, you've got to add up where you taking your team. And I don't think you want to go there.
Right.
Why would we cut down, even out of competition or envy or whatever, why would we cut down anyone trying to lay the foundation of honor on the team? I just think it's interesting how our humanity gets mixed in there. Does that make sense? Our humanity muddies the conversation a bit.
It does. And, I heard dishonor described one time as a disregard for something's true value. And I think when that begins to creep into the team, you talk about the worship team not showing up, not preparing, not doing all these things, and the practical elements that creep into the teams and the organization. And I think it's because of a disregard of a value of what we get to do, what we get to be a part of, what we get to lead. When you understand the value of the pastors that God's placed in our life, the value of the church, all of our churches that we get the privilege and the honor to be a part of, when you disregard what it really means, you lose investment, you lose that value that it really is. Yeah.
I love that definition, a disregard for something's true value. When I think sometimes working, like if we just take our pastors, just sometimes the grind of what we do, there could be a disregard for our pastor's true value. And so then dishonor, it's not like it was an intentional rebellious act. It's just, it's not at the forefront of our mind. And a disregard for something's true value, I've never heard that. But when I think about all of our team, there are moments where we've dishonored them because we haven't regarded their true value. And so, Pastor Appreciation Month is something that brings to the forefront. But if we think about honoring our pastors through the lens of regarding their value, I think it takes on a completely different tone and feeling like not just get them a gift and bring them up in front of the church, but regarding their true value. Here's the thing about our pastors, like they said yes to a very hard call.
Right.
Like they're carrying something we will never know unless God calls us to lead a congregation. And so we can't really even know their true value. And so when I think about regarding my pastor's true value, then pastor appreciation feels completely different to me than just a day on the calendar.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and my Pastor Kevin's going to be on the podcast next month here for Leading Second, talking about his new book, It Takes a Team. It's a brilliant book. I really think there's not a lot like it out there, especially for church teams. Everybody ought to get it. I picked it up, and they pre-released it at Team Church Conference this year. I picked it up and I started thumbing through it. Now, I've been on our team for decades. I've been in our church for 40 something years. I remember the very first team church event, conference, whatever. It was actually a bunch of pastors from England, if I remember correctly. It was just a little small group that came over. And I remember the first advertisement, it was very literal. It was building teams that build the church, which, funny thing, we're still saying that all these years later, but it was building teams, and it was literal, like hammers and nails and all that, were kind of the graphics, and he comes out with a teaching on team. And now 25 years later, he releases a book called It Takes a Team. I was thumbing through the book, and my first reaction, I don't mean this negative, but my first reaction was, I've read a lot of this. Because I've sat under his teaching for so long, and it's a life message. And it hit me. I have one of two responses here. I can either go, I've heard all that. Ain't nothing new in that book, which is not true, mind you. But be very easy to just say that. But I first of all, I realized amazingly 25 years of teaching it, and he still had fresh angles in there, which is just mind-blowing to me, sitting on that topic for that long and continuing to get fresh revelation on the topic. But then I started to realize this is probably a life's work type of a book, and it's my job to see that and carry it and champion it as that, not just, oh yeah, here's the stuff he's been teaching. You see, same thing, same content, two totally different attitudes. But I think we do that sometimes. Right. We sit in church on Sunday and we're like, I've heard this.
Yeah.
Or, oh, they're just, and we have to be able to get back and see the true value of something. What a great definition we're working with. See something's true value and be able to champion it.
Right.
And speak to it. Okay, let's up the ante now, because we've been talking about honor. I just want to go even further into where the world gets this conversation wrong. I want to talk for a minute with you guys on the subject of authority. Because if you really want to dial it in, what our world, I think, is truly rebelling against right now is the idea of God's established authority. I think we're living in this, what's really in America anyways, probably certainly more in Europe and other places, really becoming kind of this post-Christian, culture. And what's being elevated is this belief of my truth over the truth. And all that is, just to shine a light on it, all that is being anti-authority. My truth means I'm subject to no one. My body, my choice. Sound familiar? I am subject to no one. And so this gospel, I'm going to call it the lowercase g, gospel of self-authority, sometimes seems to be discipling our world, and sadly some Christians, where we start buying into this. And while I think we need to have a conversation about authority that is measured, I still think we can full-throat honor God's established authority. So Joseph, you mentioned earlier, maybe you'd want to say a little bit more. Why is it important from God's perspective that we get the subject of authority right and living?
Sure.
I'm going to use the S word, submitted.
Yeah.
Not just honoring, but submitted to godly authority. Why is it important?
I think at the core of it, it's a denying of yourself. It's our spirit and our flesh at war with one another. We can talk about that in a spiritual sense in our walk with Christ, but when we talk about honoring our leaders, if we truly believe, and we don't just say it, but in our heart of hearts we believe that God placed our authority over us and our pastors, and maybe it's not directly your pastor, your leader at the job that you work at, maybe your student, it's your parent, but it's God placed that authority over you. It's a denying of myself, because we truly believe that God's way is the best way. It just like in our salvation experience, that Christ becomes not just Savior, but Savior and Lord of our lives. It's the biblical model of authority. And I'm a firm believer that submission doesn't really become submission until it is counter desire. Counter what I want.
It's just agreement.
It's just agreement.
Yeah.
It's easy to walk together when we're headed the same direction and in the same pace to the same destination. But the moment we're in a new direction, at a new level, a new pace, and then I have to make the decision, am I still willing to go on this journey? Am I willing to lay myself down, my desires, my wants, my way.
Yep.
Sometimes it's as simple of laying down my way of arriving at the same destination
Yep.
in order to honor both God and my authority. And that's really easy to sit here at this table and say, but at some point the rubber has to meet the road, not just spiritually, but even culturally in the way that we lead, that truth is truth. Honor is honor. It is submission at its core. And that doesn't change because it's not convenient to my desire.
Yep.
Yeah. And it ultimately brings unity. You know, Psalm 133 talks about unity, and where there's unity, that's where that blessing then follows.
Yeah.
And I think we can all probably tell hundreds of stories from our churches, from experience that we've had where that is actually the case. And it strikes me, I think, that the pressure that we find, I guess, from society, from everything else around us, to not have that authority, but yet almost the proof's in the pudding. And I'd like to think within church we can see that actually when we do come under that authority, where there is that unity, that creates that space to move. You know, you were talking earlier about how can we allow God to do that? Well, I think that's exactly where it would happen.
Where are we trafficking in the world's suspicion to authority? Like, what is there any place where that's showing up in church life or in the way that we're talking about this?
I mean, for sure, in, younger staff that we're bringing in, they question everything, so, I mean, they're on social media where social media is telling them to question everything, this whole deconstruction type idea. And so even people who don't necessarily believe in that, they know that's not right, they still have question marks about things. And so I think it's not necessarily bad attitude, rebellious attitude. It is an outside culture that can come into our churches, our church staffs, and things like that if we're not quick to notice and quick to call out. And here's the thing. If I can't believe I'm about to say my age, but I'm 48 years old.
Come on.
I know. I'm a Gigi too. So I'm like truly the grandma at the table. But we have a responsibility, people my age. When I say we, I'm talking about we. I mean me and Brandon and Alan. Alan has grown kids too.
I do.
And Brandon's only a couple of years younger than me.
How old do you think I am?
I'm not. You're like 44.
Yeah,
I
you
think.
got it.
Yeah,
You know.
So 4 years younger than me. We have a responsibility to mentor those because, again,
That's right.
I don't think that they're coming in with a bad attitude.
Yeah.
I think they're coming in with bad information.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
so we have a responsibility to mentor them and coach them to what honor looks like.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like questioning everything that you see. Sometimes you have to trust that this person you came to call your pastor and your boss, you just have to trust them that they're hearing from God and they're leading you in the right direction.
I think every young leader needs to understand, is it Stephen Covey's circle of concern and circle of influence? I think that's who I should be giving credit to there. But the idea that not everything that's within your circle of concern is within your circle of influence, meaning not everything you care about is something you can do something about.
Yeah.
And as a younger leader, you'll do yourself a favor if you allow your circle of influence to catch up with your concern. So you want to say something about something or contribute to something, quite frankly, build the capacity, build the relational equity to get invited into the room where you can do something about it.
Good.
I will say the greatest marker of successful teams is the ability to disagree in private and unify in public. And I'm not talking flattery. I'm talking full on unify
Right.
in public. That is considered one of the highest markers of a team. So when we're talking about honor, dishonor, we're not talking about appropriate disagreement
Correct.
behind closed doors. So because you're invited into the room, you're invited to contribute to that place. You're doing so with a heart of honor, a heart to improve. So you can see where it can be productive to offer some counter thoughts. I mean, the last thing your pastor needs is a yes man, and honor is way different than being a yes man.
Right.
And the last thing your pastor needs is just a rubber stamp on everything. There's a win for a team in robust disagreement, counsel, all that. But then the ability to at the same time flip the switch, and when the decision is made and this is the direction we're headed, full throat own it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
in public.
You talked earlier about this competition, and I think sometimes we forget that we are all working towards the same goal. Like at the end of the day, we want people to find Jesus, have a relationship with him, and take them and their family to heaven. Like we're all on the same team towards the same goal.
You know, I was younger and ambitious. I was on our church staff years and years ago now. And I sat down with a person on our team. We were just having some tension and disagreement. And we met offsite at a coffee shop for a conversation. You knew that was when it was really going to be an in-depth one. Like, we can't do this at the church office. Like, we're going to be offsite at the coffee shop. And this person and I sat down, and they said to me, they were older and wiser about the situation. And this person said to me, you know, we want the same thing here. And actually that really stuck with me, because I think in my mind I had made that person out to like be the villain or the enemy.
Right.
You know, and it hit me. We are on the same team.
Yeah.
And great teams can disagree, but also know the moments to unify. And I believe what you said. I think that's a real key, that we actually are all working toward the same thing. Maybe not the same way.
Yeah.
And there might be times where your way is going to be the way, and times where you need to let their way be the way.
Yeah.
But we are all headed in the same direction. Let me ask you all this. The centurion's faith was tied to his view of authority. I mean, he recognized the Christ because he recognized the authority of he uses this illustration of, when I say to a soldier, come, he comes. When I say go, he goes. And he that's how he saw Christ. And Jesus said to him, never have I seen such faith, even in all of Israel. I mean, pretty striking moment for Jesus to affirm this man. I mean, what does that say to us as modern? Like I feel like the church is supposed to lead and supposed to get this right. And wouldn't you agree with the idea that when we do that, we operate in the authority of the Christ?
Yeah.
When we submit to God's way of doing things, we operate in his authority, which I don't know about you, that's kind of what I want to operate in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the ways of God, not the ways of man.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into now one more aspect of authority, and that is the benefit that it brings to our life. I just think if we're going to honor God's authority in our life, we need to know the benefit of it. Forget not his benefits is just the word that's coming to me right now. There's a benefit to it. And side note, little commercial, this month on Leading Second Plus, we are releasing a course called The Case for Authority, where we spell this out a little bit more. Another Pastor Appreciation Month gift to our tribe. But would you all agree that in moments where you've submitted to God's authority in your life, the ones you liked, didn't like, agreed with, disagreed, wouldn't you agree God has used that to protect you in your life? Would you guys want to say anything about it? Because I feel like protection, number one, is a benefit of being under authority. I feel like God has spared me from things because my leader told me a no, even a no I didn't want to hear, or something like that.
Yeah, I said my pastors, John and Chantel, I've never seen people who believe in other people in quite the way that they do. In that, forget second, third chances, we're talking fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, to the point where sometimes that can be a frustration. You know, for the rest of us who are there, come on, guys, how many times are we going to let him get away with this? Well, actually, there's been occasions where I probably would have acted there's occasions there where I would have jumped in and said, right, enough's enough now. We need to do something about this. But actually they said no, because God's way would be to believe in that person. And honestly, that's floored me sometimes, because also the benefit we've seen of that, the reality that we've seen come out the other side of that, is that these people that can thrive and can be believed in. And I think the message that can send is just way bigger than anything else. It's almost demonstrating that love that Jesus had for us by jumping in and just saying, actually, do you know what? Let's give him another go.
I have a story I want to share, but it's probably not podcast appropriate. But I'll just echo and say there was a time where my pastor was overly generous to somebody, and I was borderline mad at him. I was like, I can't believe you're doing that for that person. I cannot believe it. I mean, almost to the degree of like, you didn't do it for me. And I'm here. I've stayed. And this person was leaving and kind of giving us a middle finger on the way out, and had been deceptive. And the level that my pastor honored that person, and I was the older brother in the prodigal territory. I was mad. Why would you do that? And over time, I think I realized actually how wise that was, because it totally diffused the situation. It was the situation was never an issue for us. Yeah. Again, as a church. And I just thought, man, he was right. He was right, even when my flesh wanted to get it wrong. But sometimes I think our pastors just see things.
Yeah, and there's no winners. If somebody leaves badly like that, there's nobody wins, do they?
Totally.
Whereas actually that whole belief completely diffuses it.
Yep.
And there's nowhere anybody can go with that other than just love, unity.
Right. Yep. We're all sitting in a room right now in Austin, in an auditorium. Was the site of our first Leading Second camp event in 2022, I want to say. And Lindsay and I had wanted to launch Leading Second Camp, or what we thought it would be, like pre-pandemic. We launched Leading Second in 2018, and we wanted to be off to the races and have a conference. And once or twice in there, our pastor actually said no, like, you're not ready, or it's not time, or some version of that, and he had a reason. And I remember being frustrated by that. I remember not understanding, but if I trust him as my covering, I'm just going to trust that God knows what he's doing. And to be honest, I don't entirely know why he told me no. I didn't really question it. We didn't really go around it. He just kind of said no. And I thought, all right, well, I don't want to do it without his blessing. So I didn't. Well, little did we know the pandemic was coming. I can't imagine how that would have thrown the event off, or we had to reboot it later, or, I mean, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? But then when we launched it here, we launched it in strength. We had I expected like 100 people to come. I didn't know what to expect. And like 35 states showed up. Wow. And I just thought that's beyond what I would have thought possible for our little ministry just getting started, and saw that happen. And I thought, what, there's a benefit to doing it God's way. I wonder what God protected me from just by listening to my pastor. Yeah. So I think protection is a benefit. I think that perspective is a benefit. I'd love to hear you talk about this, in the lens of authority. I like to view perspective like being in a traffic jam. And when you're in a traffic jam on the freeway, all you can see is a few cars ahead of you. You see red lights, cars. You have no idea how long the jam is. You have no idea how long it's going to take to get through. I mean, you have no perspective. All you can see is right in front of you. But when you turn on the Maps app, you can see, you're going to be in traffic for 10 minutes. And you're going to get off here and you're going to go over here. And why is that? Because you're accessing information from a higher source. You're accessing information from a satellite, from computer systems that can actually see the whole grid, not just what's right in front of you. And I feel like that's what authority does. I feel like when you're submitted to godly authority, you get access to perspective. That is different than what you would have on your own. Have any of you experienced that, where I submitted to a leader and God used it to give me wisdom and he used it to give me leadership that I maybe wouldn't have had on my own in that moment.
Yeah, and I think that, honor and humility have to work hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't appreciate that perspective without humility.
Right.
Because pride says that I have the answer. Pride says that I don't need an outside voice. Pride says that I can take care of myself. But humility, again, talking about attributing value, humility attributes value to the voice that God's put in my life. And so you honor and you appreciate the perspective that your pastor, that your leader has that maybe you don't. And if we believe that, our leaders are God's voice that he's placed in our life, then we believe that he speaks to them in unique ways, that he leads them in unique ways. Not just, we can always talk about their years of experiences and the things that they've been through, but I think even beyond that, because maybe you lead today, if you're hearing this podcast, you're leading under a new and inexperienced pastor, but they are still God's voice and God's person that he has put in place. And I believe that all of our pastors in that position carry a unique perspective that offer insight both spiritually and in leadership that enable us to navigate seasons that maybe we think we're equipped to handle, and we get on the other side and look back and we go, wow. I was around a professional golfer that played on the PGA Tour for a short amount of time, and he said the easiest way to understand how to play a certain hole is to get to the green and look back. And see the way that the hole was intended to be played. And I think oftentimes we get to the destination and we look back and we didn't even realize the things that we were able to navigate through or move around because of the voices of wisdom that not only God placed in our life, but that we trusted in humility the voice that they had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got another benefit for us, but it's not a pleasant one. If we want to talk about one more, the other benefit of life under authority is maturity, because God uses leaders in our life to grow us up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the problem with that is that means we have to go through character school.
Yeah.
And we don't like this one. We don't like when we face kind of a grow up moment. And I think with perspective, you can look back and see what God was doing.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it just feels really tough. It feels really disorienting. Have you all been in a moment where looking back, you realize God was growing me up through that? Have you been in that where authority matured you and didn't feel pleasant at the time? And if so, how'd you navigate it? How'd you get through it?
Yes. So I'll try to make this story super brief, but a few years ago, and I say a few, it's been more than a few. It's been a lot of years ago. And I really am not sure how I feel about that. I'm responding to the maturity one once again. But we worked for a pastor, and we knew that our time there had ended, and the situation was terrible. And our pastor had given us an end date, and it was pretty far out. And we wanted to leave well before that because it was an uncomfortable situation. There was a lot of uncomfortable things happening. There was hurtful things happening. Yeah. But he had given us this end date, and we honored it. We didn't have to. There was nothing. He really couldn't hold us there, but he was the spiritual authority over us in that time. And we honored that end date, and we made a commitment to each other. We're going to honor this end date. Yeah. Not only that, we're going to honor him through this whole process. And, maturity says on the other side of that God honored us and protected us for 17 years now, and has taken care of us. And I believe it was because of how we exited the situation that we were in. And we were honoring in it the whole way. We kept our word. Everything we said we were going to do, we did. And in the moment, I'm not going to pretend like we were mature then. It was just by the grit of our teeth and because we are loyal people and because we tried to keep our word. But on this side of it, maturity says, God has blessed your life because you were willing to honor the man of God.
I believe it.
And so it was just a valuable lesson to us. And what I always tell young leaders is you never go wrong with honor, ever. You never go wrong with honor, even when someone doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You never go
That's
wrong
true.
with honor. And God will honor you when you honor them.
Yeah,
That's right. I have an opposite story. When Lindsay and I were in Minnesota, in my story, I often will say things like I've been at the same church most of my life, and that's true. I do have a couple of years, though, where I was sent and released by Pastor Kevin right after Bible school to go serve at a local church in the Minneapolis area. It's where I met Lindsay, and had wonderful pastors there. It was honestly such an amazing landing spot after Bible school for a couple of years for me. And they got the worst of me, the most immature version of me, of hopefully any. Well, when we went to leave, so we had the opposite thing. We went to the pastor because we had been taught good principles of transition. And what I've always been taught is you go early, you talk early. So we went early and we said, we're just feeling this. We feel like we've got a year to give you, but we just want you to be part of the conversation. Well, he went away. He got some counsel and he came back to us and said, you're going to be done in 30 days and we're going to tell the church on Sunday. This is Thursday. And I have a student overnighter that night that's going to go till, 4 or 6 a.m. on Friday. So I've got from 4 or 6 a.m. on Friday on no sleep to tell every family member and friend that I want to hear this before I move. So it was a sprint of 48 hours for us to get to everybody. And then 4 weeks later, we get dumped out the other side. No paychecks, no nothing. And we were going home. And going to my home church anyways. Lindsay's home was in Minnesota, but going to my home church. And honest to God, I did not triangulate with Pastor Kevin. He knew we were coming. But he actually said, I won't talk to them until they get here because we didn't want it to look like he had taken us or stolen us from that church or whatever. He said, they're welcome to come, but I will not speak to them, physically not speak to them until they arrive here. So we had to launch out just in faith that there was going to be anything waiting for us on the other side. We kind of got dumped into it with no ramp, and we had to fight through all kinds of the mind monsters of this is not what we saw. We were going to give them a year. I think it's a lot better that we were short because I think that year, to your point, becomes excruciating, but we were not ready. We were not planning. Well, the moral of the story is I feel like we did well, getting through that. Still have a wonderful relationship with that pastor today. Well, let me see. It would be 7 years later. I am now... You've heard my story. I'm now being let go from the Champion Center staff. And that was the moment that launched us out on the road. And because it was another surprise, I guess this is our theme, but because it was another surprise, we fasted and prayed for a month, just believing God to give us direction for being on the road, serving churches, all that. And I have ye of little faith at that moment. I just didn't know what to do. We kind of put a fleece out before the Lord. And we said, okay, God, we will follow you and we will serve you, but we do need to know you're in this crazy idea of travel and serving churches. I just need to know you're in it, that this is not something I'm trying to make up. Mm-hmm. So the fleece I put out there was by December 31st, that was by the end of the month, by December 31st, I'm believing you, God, for a date on the calendar in January to go serve a church. Like, anyone, anywhere, I'm believing you for one date by the, if you'll do that, well, partly because my paycheck ended in January and I just had to pay bills, but if you'll do that, my agreement with God was, I will trust you. I will follow you. I will, I don't need to know the end from the beginning, but I do need to know you're with me. And so the whole month goes and we have, not one conversation with a pastor. We didn't know who to start with, who to call. I knew no one. Even some of the relationships we would kind of know that I started with, I didn't even meet them until January. So I had nothing in the hopper. 1 p.m., December 31st, I get a call from a pastor. And think about how rare this is. He said, I made a mistake in our preaching calendar and I have a hole in 2 weeks. I'm wondering if you can come fill it. He didn't know I was looking. And he said, can you get it approved by your pastor to be gone in 2 weeks? And I thought, well, of course I can approve. He fired me. You know, that's what I'm thinking. I'm saying that snarky, but I'm like, yeah, I'm approved. I can go. So he didn't know. But think about how rare to get a 2-week invite, to go to a church. Do you know what pastor it was?
The Minnesota pastor.
It was the pastor we didn't burn in Minnesota. He actually gave me my start twice.
Wow.
In ministry.
Wow.
And I mean, had we left poorly, had we transitioned poorly, I mean, maybe that wouldn't have been there. So I think leaders have just got to get some perspective on this, that God is in the process of working and growing you up, and his ways just work at the end of the day. We don't always know how, right? But his ways just work in the end. So there's my short story for your long story. But I think maybe what we can take away from that is leaders are going to be in all kinds of situations where they're going to be tempted to get this wrong. All right, guys, I got one more question for you to land it today. This question actually comes in from an event that we were doing with Team Church earlier this year. And it came in on the texture question and thing, and I've carried it with me for a little while. The question this person asked, I want to hear your perspective on this, is, we say go the extra mile, but they basically asked, when is the extra mile abuse? When is the extra mile? When is my leader asking me to go the extra mile crossover to abuse? I have my answer ready. I would just love to hear your answers. What do you say about that?
Oh, gosh. Why is everybody looking at me?
It's that wisdom.
Wisdom.
So, extra mile is, talked about in the Bible. It's at NorthRock, it's one of our core values. And, to me, extra mile is not just your job description, but it is willing to do anything. It's the when people say, well, that's not my job, or that's not on my job description, or, I always think, okay, they don't have extra mile. They don't have extra mile. I'm a little weirded out by the abuse thing, because I think that there has been it has been misused.
I agree
quite a bit, and so, but I do know that there is legit cases where pastors kind of
I
possibly
think it's a slap in the face to real abuse,
right?
To call I had to stay late today abuse.
Right.
I think that's a slap in the face.
I think we have to be careful using words like balance and
Sure.
Even I'm all for boundaries, but I think we have to be careful with the word boundaries because sometimes we want to use the word boundaries to get my way. Here's the thing: we don't mind going the extra mile when it's something we want to do.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Nobody mind if it's an event for your department that you're super excited about. You're willing to go the extra mile, but when it's somebody else's department, somebody else on the team's department, and they're asking you to stay late and help, well, all of a sudden you're hitting my boundaries.
Yeah.
I have boundaries up, and I don't know that I have a good answer here, but I would say that we have to be super careful about using phrases like this. God calls us to go the extra mile, and if you trust your leaders, then you trust that they are not abusing you, and this isn't abuse. So, yeah, I don't know. Somebody else.
I think in leadership in this current cultural climate, we've forgotten that ministry, when we signed up for it, is a selfless endeavor.
That's true.
That when we signed up for this isn't about me. It isn't about my gain and my glory. It's about serving his kingdom and serving the church. It's selfless by nature. It is service. And if we believe that God has placed our leaders in our life to help us grow, to help us develop, you talk about maturity. We gain this maturity. Sometimes that happens through navigating through pain. I think about my son who I coach in sports, and there are times that one of the things we say with our kids is we do, and they say hard things and they love it so much. But our heart is that they're growing and they're developing. Yeah. And there's at times things that are very hard for them, especially when they're growing and developing physically and athletically, that they come out better on the other side. But he trusts my intent that I'm helping him to become the best version of himself. My desire is not to cause him pain. My desire is not ill-placed. My desire is not to cause him harm. My desire is to help him become the young man that I see that's in him. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to remember that, one, we signed up for a selfless endeavor, and two, our leaders see something in us, and it's their job to help that become real.
Yep. I love the thought of having a we're all in this together mindset. Yeah, that for me is the thing that should drive everyone. And the Bible talks about us all being part of one body, and we're all playing different parts. And actually, you've just described it really well there. That actually, it doesn't matter who's responsible, who's doing what. Actually, we're just in this together. Yeah. I'm reminded of when we first started church, and there were 3 or 4 of us. Well, guess what? We all had to just get on and just do whatever at that point, because there was no other option. Right. But now we've increased in size, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter if I'm not really there. Well, do you know what it does? Because I think that actually sends a real message. Yeah. And I think that unity piece is so key. We're all in this together. We have a staff creed, and one of them is, I am a servant leader. Nothing is below me.
Very good.
And that's something that we'll say quite regularly, because it's just that constant reminder that actually we are doing this together. This is God's church. We're in it.
That's right.
And we're going to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was similar to Jen's, in that it's not your pastor that asked you to go to the extra mile. I think you both have said we signed up for this, number one, and Jesus asked us to go the extra mile. And I think at the end of the day, we just have to trust that he sees and he knows. He knows it, and he is no man's debtor. He is the rewarder for those of us who work tirelessly in ministry. And your reward may not even be here in heaven. I'm sorry. Your reward may not even be here on earth. Your reward might be in heaven. But Jesus asked for it. He did it. He modeled it. And I believe he rewards us for it. I hope that something we've said today has been helpful to you, just to reframe honor, reframe authority. I do understand that when we talk like this, I think we can touch on bruises. I think there's a lot of nuance to this conversation. Well, Brandon, you don't know where I've been. You don't know what's happened to me under a leader. All of those things are worthy of a conversation at some point. I just hope on principle that our tribe will hear some of this conviction today and adopt some of these thoughts as core conviction for us. Time and a place to mitigate the outliers and the challenges, but I think we've presented today a pretty decent case for why honoring God's authority is going to benefit you and build the church. Let's end with one more question. What's one practical thing a leader could walk out and do today to honor their pastor for Pastor Appreciation Month? One practical thing they could do. I'll give you mine, and then I want to hear yours. I think we need to stop assuming our pastors feel encouraged all the time. Did I take yours?
Yep.
Sorry. And I think they need to hear your voice on a voice note. That's what I'm going to say. I think they need to hear it. Don't just say, great job on the message today, Pastor. Say, this is how God spoke to me. Your voice matters to me in this way. Thank you. I think they need to hear it from you. You guys go. What do you think? Sorry if I took yours.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll kind of stick to it a little bit and then change it a little bit. I tell my pastor sometimes, gosh, that was a great message. And he'll say to me, what did you like about it? Which is reminding me he wants to hear specifically why I thought it was a great message. So like Pastor Brandon said, be specific about why.
Very good.
I write my pastor a thank you note pretty regularly. Probably not as often as I should, but I think sometimes we think that they're getting way more, like you said. Yep. And there's just something about the old-fashioned art of sitting down and writing. It's more than a text. I actually sent you a thank you note one time, and you called me or sent me a voice text and said, it's a lost art form.
It is.
I was so surprised to get this in the mail. And so I think your pastor would probably love to get that too.
That's really good.
Shall I jump in? Leave you to mop it up. Sure. One practical thing is just to keep praying for them daily.
Oh, very good.
And let them know that you're doing that as well. Because I think it's a misconception that actually, do they know that people are praying for them?
Right.
And
really
it's
good.
so key. And I think everything that's coming against the church, just keep praying for them.
Very good.
I would say listen to what they care about. Don't just listen to what they want to do or what they instruct you to do, but listen to their heart.
Yep.
And care about what they care about. I think if we're willing to, put our things aside and align with where their heart is and get where their heart is before they ask you to come there, meet them there without having to be asked to come there. I think just leaning in and listening to their heart.
Let's just make that super practical really fast. And I'm going to say this on behalf of one of our coaches named Nick, because I think he would say this if he was here. But he tells a story about one Sunday driving into church, and he saw his pastor over on the side of the parking lot. This is in like Sunday attire, picking up trash in the flower bed or the lawn or whatever it is. And he actually saw it a couple times. I mean, his pastor's a great man, and quite frankly, is just not too big to get out there and pick up trash. But he started to key in. My pastor cannot stand that trash.
Yeah.
That somehow ends up there, throughout the week. So he just made it his mission. I'm going to get there before I'm going to pick up the trash because it mattered to him.
Yeah.
He saw it and such. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today for a conversation. Leading Second, we love you. We're so thankful for you. Thankful that you found this space. Stay with us as we move forward with kind of our reformatted monthly podcast here. You're also going to want to check out our Walk With Me podcast, which releases a couple times a month, where we take walks and we have probably a little more nuanced conversation, and we mentor and we walk together through some of the tensions and challenges of ministry. We'd love for you to join us there. Leading Second, we love you. Until next time, God bless you.
It's our honor to serve churches and leaders across the globe. We equip ministry leaders with the coaching, events, and resources needed to embrace their calling, get it right with their pastor, and lead in an uncommon way. You can visit our website, leadingsecond.com, to learn more about how we can come alongside you as you lead from the middle, from the second chair, for the second chair.